Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Mindfuel, where we are making mental fitness accessible to endurance athletes so that you can train your brain as consciously as you train your body. Today, we're going to be taking a dive into our stress management fuel group and specifically talking more about REDS and body image. If you're not sure what REDS stands for, stay tuned. We'll get into it. Joining us for this discussion today is Bryony or Bry Rowe. Welcome to Mindfuel, Bry.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's great to be on board to talking about such a key topic today.
Yes, thank you. I know you've put a lot of thought into this topic, and we're really looking forward to hearing more from you. Bri, we start every episode here asking our
Mhm.
guests to introduce themselves by telling us who you are. So, not what you do, but rather how might a friend or family member describe you?
Okay. It's a great question because I just normally default all the time to this is who I am as a brand because this is my main sport area. I think someone who is a resilient, determined, kind of motivated individual. I'm quite impulsive. If I have a flaw, it's not really working out sometimes, getting to the final stage before I kick off the first one, but somehow things kind of can fall into place normally. I think I'm someone that's quite adventurous, I'm ambitious, and overall a bit of a go-getter.
That all makes sense. I don't know you very well, but based on what I do know, some of the conversations we've had and what you're currently pursuing, which we'll come on to in a little bit, those are all traits that make a lot of sense in the context of your life that I know. So thank you so much for sharing. Can you tell us now a little bit more about your relationship to endurance sport?
Yeah. I think endurance sport for me is a lot of things. It's an outlet, it's a method of achievement, it's a journey of learning different levels of who I am under pressure and under extreme stress. And I think sometimes for me, it's a coming together of the mind and the body. And I haven't always felt my mind and body were connected. And endurance sport for me has given me an ability to learn how to bring them in sync and feel like they're synchronized.
Definitely want to dig into how it's done that and where you've found that connection so
Yeah.
strongly. I have a sense it might be related to your swimming. So, Bri, you and I were introduced by a fellow Mind Fuel athlete and expert, Jess Golding. And when she mentioned that you would be swimming the channel this summer. So, for those listening, we're recording this at the end of May. And as you can imagine, when I heard channel swim, it was like, well, that is like definition of endurance. So, definitely
Yeah.
sounds like someone that we should speak to here on Mind Fuel. And Jess also shared that you're very passionate about sports and nutrition. So I was really excited when you accepted the outreach to come on and have a chat with us. And one of the things that came up in our conversation, our introductory conversation, as well as it's quite evident on some of your social media, is that you've been pretty open about your battle with relative energy deficiency in sport or REDS and how your recovery from that has really changed your life and I think led to or helped support this connection that you're speaking about mind and body. So that is what we want to dive into a little bit more today. And if you wouldn't mind giving us maybe just some more context on what REDS is and what that experience was like for you in terms of identifying that you had it and how you started your healing journey from it.
So REDS basically is an abbreviation for how we look at relative energy deficiency syndrome in female athletes, and it's going to be linked to when we're not giving ourselves enough fuel, which creates us to have enough energy for the expenditure that we're having in the sports that we're doing. So for myself, there's been different periods of time when this would have come up for me, and very much different ways I viewed it. So I would say when I was a younger athlete, and for reference here for people, I grew up doing a lot of swimming, but other sports as well. So I played a lot of rugby when I was a teenager and I liked athletics and all those kinds of things. But when I was a teenager and then a younger adult, I definitely wouldn't have recognized REDS in the way I would do now. I can just reflect on knowing that how I, was existing and how I felt very much aligns to what REDS is, but I didn't have the kind of cognitive awareness then to have recognized it as much, which is kind of fatigue, prone to injuries, poor sleep, literally a lot of these things that adds in. But for me, as an older adult, and the things I'm training for now, having the knowledge I do, and awareness of my body means that something like training to swim the English Channel is a huge demand on the body, and it can be really difficult to balance how to get enough energy in. I would also like to stress that something like REDS isn't always reflective of a size element. So I think sometimes people can view these things as like it's people who are very, very, let's say, lean or very slight builds. REDS would be something to affect them, but actually it can be athletes of all sizes and shapes. And if you're suddenly doing a shift in how much energy you're putting out, your body will be affected. So something I found recently-ish, let's say in the last 6 to 9 months, is I had to do a big push onto the training I was doing, the swimming training. So I went back to doing a lot of speed work and also cold water swimming. Both of those things together can be huge energy zappers, especially at cold water, because your body has such a shiver effect afterwards, and that burns a lot of fat. So it's a big calorie expenditure. And then I would recognize I lost weight quite quickly, but it's not something I necessarily monitored that closely. So I think I probably did lose quite a lot of weight in quite a short period of time. And I would stress to people, like, losing weight is not an issue for people generally, but if you lose weight very quickly, it puts a stress on your body. So when you lose weight drastically quickly, your body is really stressed out by that. And it just thinks, I'm going to prioritize keeping one thing at a time going. So what I recognize happened to me in the months before Christmas is my periods became very short. So I had like 3 periods in 6 weeks. And that would have been because my body was stopping ovulating. So my body was really stressed and thought, this isn't enough time for this. Now I have a big group around me of people who know REDS very well and of experienced kind of practitioners and speaking about it and talking about it. So I had people to go to. And whilst that wasn't REDS in itself, that's one of the early stages of where something can go on to develop to happen. So REDS really comes about after a number of months. But it's really good to be able to now recognize signs, because sometimes we are told, as women by healthcare practitioners that this is normal in your period or that is normal, changes are normal. But it's a lot of having faith in yourself. And if something doesn't feel quite right and something's off, you don't need to be kind of convinced you're being dramatic about it. I knew something was off with my body. So I went back to looking at what's going out and what's going in, and I could adjust accordingly. And I kind of could get back onto track a few weeks later, a few months later. But it's still something I track so closely now, and being really aware of it.
A few things I think I want to emphasize and then maybe dig into a bit more. I think one, it's relative energy deficiency. And so that doesn't always only come from sport. I think something I also learned, because I've also struggled with REDS, is that I could be doing the same amount of training, but if my work stress or another stress in my life really spikes, that takes a lot of energy from my body. And it's about the overall energy expenditure that we have as humans. And it may be that I need to eat more, I need to sleep more in order to level out that energy balance, or reduce the training when other life is busy. And that's why your point around really knowing your body, we are all only experts in our own bodies, and no matter how knowledgeable or trained a professional is, they can certainly help guide. But as you said, it's so important to listen to the signals that we're feeling in our bodies, which may be different than someone else's. And men can suffer from this too. And it's perhaps a little bit easier as women that we have our cycles as a pretty good measuring stick, because as you said, that might be one of the first things that is a physical cue that something might be off. But we are all human, and we can all end up in an energy deficiency through different means, especially those of us who are super active. And so, Bri, you mentioned that you have a lot of support around you. Could you talk a little bit more about kind of the personas that comprise that? Is it nutritionists, coaches, psychologists, and how you found them, and a little bit about how you use that support? Because I think that can be a little bit of an unknown for people as they venture into different activities, or might be listening to this and thinking, I might actually struggle with this. Who would I turn to?
Absolutely. So I actually would really say a wealth of knowledge can be found online. And I know that is, I don't know, controversial, or to be taken with a pinch of salt, in the sense of finding the right information. And you maybe need a degree of knowledge to find the right information. But for me, a huge amount of my network was found through social media. So Instagram. And obviously, I have like an Instagram sports page. And over the years, I've just built quite a big network of key figures in some of these areas. So there's a few people I know now. So one is I'm part of a charity called Athlete Interactions, which is run by a swimmer called, or was the brainchild of a swimmer called Amber Keegan. And I have met a lot of people through being part of that charity. So then there is a page ran on Instagram called the Female Triad Awareness, which focuses a lot on REDS, but eating disorders in athletes generally. So there's the woman Keris who runs that was the person I went to at first with my own noticings of my body, and my cycle seems different, and I could have a chat with her, and she gave me some great advice. There's also a page ran by Emma Cole, which is all around REDS. So I use these available social media pages as where I get a lot of my information from, but they are backed by people who know the insides out and are focused on wanting to raise awareness to others. So I'm a big kind of advocate for that approach.
Super. And have you had any individual like psychological support through this journey, or has it been primarily, some of these experts that you found on social media and or nutritionist support?
Yeah, so I interestingly, so I think up till now it's been very much utilizing this network I have of other people within this industry or market area that I've met. I have met them all through social media, but I do think something like Instagram is an amazing tool for connecting. It's kind of how I've built my whole swimming network. Really, is almost entirely through sharing on social media and meeting like-minded individuals. But with that being said, so Athlete Interactions, the charity that I'm part of, is a source of how we connect athletes to mental health support and different services. So there is psychological support through that available as well.
Fantastic. And you've also now kind of turned this into a bit of a passion around
Mm.
performance nutrition, I
Mhm.
think. So can you tell us more about kind of what you're pursuing there and how you've gone about learning how to really fuel your body for the needs that you have?
Yeah, definitely. I'll take it back one step further, which is what led me to wanting to do more with
Great.
performance nutrition, because originally it was just for myself. So I've always been on a sport journey for for about the last 5 years of where I really got into endurance sports as a single athlete, kind of on my own, in terms of like I did some long triathlons, and then I found long distance swimming, or ultra swimming as we call it, having not focused as much on swimming for quite a few years since I'd been a teenager. So when I started doing 10K swims and then kind of 15K swims and bigger numbers, I didn't have a huge amount of knowledge for what I should be doing differently with my nutrition. It was almost a bit of a try and hope for the best. And your body, if it's conditioned, will do as much as it can for quite some time. And then I think the wheels start to come off a bit. And that is something like where you begin to maybe see signs of REDS. But for me, it was also very much developing some different signs. So I have a skin condition called perioral dermatitis, which for loads of people probably won't have heard of before, but it's an inflammation of the top layer of your skin. It comes up around the nose and the mouth as lots of little red marks. There's no cure. So when it kind of comes up badly, it's something very difficult to go to the doctors with to get advice. They might give you antibiotics or creams, but all that does is gets rid of it temporarily. And I was struggling to find any advice to tell me how to actually get rid of it long term. There didn't seem to be any knowledge there. So I just went on a huge journey of my own discovery to try and work out, why is this happening? And a huge reason is it is like imagining it is an iceberg, the top of an iceberg that's coming out of the
Okay.
water, but the rest of the iceberg is submerged and you can't see how much is going on underneath the water. And reading that was really interesting to learn. So I'm seeing on my face a tiny bit of what's going on in the rest of my body. And it's almost a stress reactor. So it really was a thing of my body is under a lot of stress, which I understand because I'm going and making it do these huge swims and doing a lot of training. And I'm not putting back in what it needs. So I decided when I was going to do something as big as the channel, I needed to give my body the level of respect it deserved. I kind of, in my own research, realized that periodermatitis is very linked to your microbiome not being in sync, which we all know really links to your mind not being in sync, and then your whole body, your cycle, everything is not in sync. So I wanted to find out what I could do to support that. And a big part was the foods that worked for me, how much I actually needed to be eating. I did a lot of learning then around different body types. So for people that don't know that as well, that's bodies being endomorphic, ectomorphic, or mesomorphic. I'm not going to give you all the knowledge here. It's something you can go off and Google, or you can see on my nutrition page. But it's really, really useful to learn to fuel for the body type you have and not try to fuel for the body type you wish you had, because we can't shift the body type that we
Mhm.
are. We are genetically what we are, but you can make those genetics work for you the best that you can. That for me was liberating. So fueling my body based on how it is built and how it just is. And through the journey of that, I just started to enjoy it so much and found it so liberating that I thought, I think more people would like to know about this, and especially women. So I actually went and did qualifications in it to work then with people on their performance nutrition strategies, so that they're feeling that same sense of being completely fueled and ready, and you don't need to exist feeling broken and tired, Don't get me wrong,
Yes.
sometimes I'm broken and tired, but at least I like to think the fueling is going in right.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm sure that you can tell by the length of time it takes to recover
Yeah,
how the feeling's going, because
definitely.
naturally, after swimming the distances that you do or doing any of these long activities that many of us participate in, we are going to be a bit tired, but when
Yeah,
we can bounce back, we know we're helping our bodies
yeah,
take in and build up from that training and use the nutrition to recover really well. You
yeah.
mentioned at the beginning this mind body connection and really learning more about, I think what you said was what's going through your brain while you do these big activities. Can you just tell us more about that and how you've learned to really harness the power of thought to fuel your
Definitely.
endurance adventures?
So I think sometimes with this training, there's like a triad, and I've definitely noticed that more recently with doing cold water swimming. So the triad, I think for me, is like there's mind, there's body, and there's muscles. And the body and muscles are kind of linked, but for me, sit in two separate categories. So I train my muscles to be able to last a long time or to be able to do a certain thing. But I need to train the body to exist in a state of stress. That's cold water, really, for a long amount of time. And I need to convince the mind it can do it. And I just feel all those three things have to be linked. But it almost feels like you can only really be training two at one time. So you need to be aware of how they're going on. So, the channel will be all three, but my training is basically sometimes I'm in a pool and I'm doing hard pool sessions. Well, that's muscles, really. That's the muscles to give me what I need, and maybe a bit of the body. When I'm going and doing cold water swims, that's kind of body and mind. So the body needs to be able to tolerate the cold, and I'm adding on to that, adding on to that, adding on to that. And then the mind needs to believe it's doing it. So all these things kind of come together that when I go off and do these really long swims, the ability is there, the body can last, but the mind needs to believe it can. And if one of those things isn't in sync, it falls apart. So if your brain doesn't believe it's done enough, that it can go on to do more, even if your body was trained enough and even if your muscles are trained enough, you just fall apart because the brain has to believe you can be in there for that time. I found that so interesting to learn, and I think the things that comes up for reasons people often don't manage to do the channel is probably not often their ability. It's because they stopped believing they were
Mhm.
capable of doing it. Each training session I do, I think about like which part is being added onto today.
I love that conscious approach to it. I think all of what you've said makes sense. And probably for
Mm.
many of us, myself included, some of that happens unconsciously and we
Mhm.
kind of know it needs to happen, but don't always make like a concerted effort at it. Maybe, the muscle part, yes, because we're doing our workouts, but I love how specifically you're addressing each of these areas. And I think that probably is going to be why you will be successful. I have all of the faith that you will
Thank
get
you.
there.
Fingers crossed. I think it also applies to things that's versatile for many people. It's the same if you're in the gym and you're lifting weights. You could have had a little bit of a break, but you'll probably come back to a weight and think, I can lift that because you have done one similarly before, or a while ago you did one a bit heavier. Whereas the first time you attempt a new weight, your brain isn't convinced you can do it yet. And I
Yes.
found that in the gym when I've had breaks and I come back, it's a huge thing in that sense of belief.
Totally. I love that example. I also have found I've actually told some of the like trainers in classes that I'll take, and they'll say, you can do more than that. And sometimes I've asked them to put weight on the bar and not tell me how much they've put
Yeah.
on, and I won't count because it comes down to, oh, well, they believe I can do it. And I know that I'll be safe about it. One of the big mental
Mm.
blockers for me sometimes, particularly with heavy weight or a really hard workout, is, oh, I want to be careful of my form. I don't want to get injured. There's probably also a mental thing I need to work on, but when
That's
the
so
coach
accurate.
says, "You can do it, I'll watch you. I know that you'll be
Yeah.
safe with this." It's amazing how much more I can sometimes do than when I think, "Oh, I'm gonna load the bar for this deadlift today," or whatever.
Yeah, but actually, it was such a good point you raised there of the safety element, and maybe I didn't stress that enough with what I said before and with some of my mind and body part. But some of the cold water swimming I do, there is such a key element of listening to the mind and the body because I go off and do some cold swims, and I might have in my mind when I get in for 2 hours in 12 degrees, I should just be able to do that. And sometimes I have a realization during that I'm really, really cold, and actually, it's more sensible to get out at 90 minutes. And that's not because my mind is weak, it's recognizing my body's ability.
Yeah,
So there can be a lot of factors that change things. And I think it's also a great awareness people can gain of recognizing the differences between, like, I just don't, I'm too tired to do this today or something. That's not also wrong, but that's a different area. But actually
sure.
something where, like you said, they're lifting weights for safety or being in cold water. There is
Yeah.
a point of knowing how far your body should be pushed and when you should listen to it saying, this is our limit, and it's not weakness.
Mm, that's a great point. A hard balance, and I think something sometimes we have to find through experience, but I
Mhm.
think you're right, especially with something as challenging physically as like cold water that we really need to listen to ourselves. Have you developed, Bry, any mantras or specific ways of talking to yourself in those moments where particularly you feel, those voices are creeping in of
Mhm.
maybe I want to quit or I'm not sure about this? Have you found some things that repeatedly work for you to kind of bat those back?
Yes, and some of them are my own and some of them are other people's. So I think the ones that I've maybe heard from other people are some great lines, which is like, I haven't come this far to only come this far. I love that one.
Oh, I do too. I haven't heard that one before.
There's some other ones I've seen, which it's a literal saying, but I like the kind of metaphorical element. It's like, never make decisions in the dark. So there's a very famous ultra swimmer who's done huge things who said that. She literally meant she was swimming at night and her friend said, don't make a decision in the dark. But I also think it's like a don't make a decision at the mental low point, right?
Yes. Yes.
Whole ride it out, make a decision when you're in the light, like that kind
Yeah,
of thing.
totally.
And then something I've developed for myself recently when I'm swimming around is I just think of myself as like chipping away. So it's like each bit, each lap, each hour, it's just chipping away. I'm chipping away at the little things. Another one is I'm doing what I can on the day. So I almost view each
Mm.
swim as what it is on that day. So I did a 6 hour swim last week, but I have a 10-hour swim in a few weeks. But I try not to think about that 10-hour swim because I'm doing what I can at the time. And this is all I need to do at the time. So don't start thinking, oh, this has been 6, but next time it will only be halfway at 5. Well, that's another day's problem. And my last one, which is quite a new thing, but I really like it, is I'm big into relaxing. When I'm not doing these things, I'm really big into chilling and relaxing and being on my sofa. And I have a bit of a joke at home that I have a sofa shaped dent of my body, you know? I think sometimes these sports really pushes you to reevaluate what comfort is and how lucky we are a lot of the time to be feeling very comfortable, and we live quite comfortable lives now. And I know I'm choosing to not be comfortable, but I like to remind myself when something feels hard or it feels like it's going on forever, that actually in a few hours I will be back home on my sofa. So it's always going to end.
I love
And
that.
I hope I can hold on to that enough in the channel because obviously I know the channel will be like, I won't be in my sofa in a few hours, but I want to think like, but probably tomorrow I will be on my sofa. And then when I get home and I'm on my sofa, I'm like, see, you're back here.
Yes.
It
You're
happened.
proving to your mind and your body that
You're
it's
back.
true.
Yeah, that's my new one.
Fantastic. Well, Bri, I think we're going to have you back after the channel swims so we can debrief a little bit and understand how these mental, I don't want to say games, but training, how that's all.
Tricking your brain, but yeah,
Yeah, it is a bit, I guess.
convincing
Yeah.
your mind, yeah.
If you could leave us with one final succinct thought on the kind of REDS body image stress management topic, what would that be?
I think it would be trying to view your mind and body as being a real joy and successful,
Mm.
positive win. Like, I think it's so easy for us to criticize our bodies and maybe also our minds. But if I'm looking from maybe a women's element here, women are really self-critical, and I used to spend a lot of time being very self-critical of individual parts of my body, but now I really like to think of this overall element of a body achieving things by, if I didn't have the legs I do, I wouldn't be able to kick the way I do. If I didn't have the arms that I do, I wouldn't be able to do as many arm strokes. And all of that helps, I think, me view my body as one entity achieving bigger things rather than fixating on the tiny parts. So I think trying to look at that view of your mind and body working together as an overall entity is something I really like to focus on now.
I love it. Praising our bodies and
Mm.
not looking at the aesthetic, but thinking about the incredible machines that they are, especially when we put them through the paces in our endurance training and events. They really respond. And when we train smartly and fuel them properly, wow, they're powerful.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Bri, you've mentioned a few times some of your social media. So can you just tell us where people can follow along your journey and
Yeah,
find you in
definitely.
case they'd like to get in touch?
Yeah, of course. So I have a swimming page on Instagram, which is just all about the swims I'm doing and the training I'm doing and all of that. And that is Bryony Eve Swims. And I also have a nutrition page now as well, and that is BE Nutrition.
Fantastic. Well, as always, we will link all of that in the show notes as well as on our website. And I can't thank you enough for sharing this wisdom today and being very open about your journey because it's something I think a lot of people may struggle with or think about. And it's not always easy to speak so vulnerably. So thank you.
No
To
worries.
all of you, our viewers, if this resonated with you, as always, please do like our video or the podcast if you're listening and subscribe to our channels. Follow us on Spotify. If you have any follow up comments or questions, you can always just post in the comments or reach out to us at connect@mindfuel.fit. And if you haven't already, check out the other content on our channel and let us know what's resonating, what's not, and what you'd like to hear more of. Otherwise, Bri, thank you. Thanks to all of you for listening and joining, and we'll see you next time. Happy and healthy training.